Hello everyone, today we're going to talk a little bit, well, not a little bit, quite a lot, about Serge Lutens, because just before Christmas this year I've got a pack of samples. This box, well, it's not filled with these samples, there's other things in here, with mainly Serge Lutens and some other goodies from a very dear friend, and I've separated them so that today we will focus mainly on Serge Lutens, and in another video we'll talk about the rest of the contents of that box. And let me just tell you, it's been a journey. Some of them I've well, all of them I've smelled during the holidays. My holidays were filled with Serge Lutens fragrances, among other things, and some of them I have talked about on my Insta stories. I've described them as, you know, as I knew best for, you know, my first impressions. And just so you know, I've worn all of them, but that doesn't mean I know them all that well. So let's just go through them to maybe see what we'll be talking about today. So the first we'll be talking about will be Fils de Joie, just because the sample is the leaky one. The leaky one, and there's barely any fragrance left in this one. I think it'll be enough just for one last spray, maybe generously. Then we will talk about, well, not today, Ambre Sultan is a fragrance that I actually purchased, and I will film it separately, because this one is just, you know, it's just blew my mind. Then we've got De Profundis. We will talk about this today. And L'Orpheline, which is a nice mini. And then Chergui. You know, if you can tell, this one is a mini as well. The writing is just so small. Then Écrin de fumée, whatever you pronounce that, Écrin de fumée. And the last one is Dans le bleu qui pétille, which unfortunately we won't talk about in this film, in this video, because I purchased it as well. So a separate video for this as well. The fragrances I've got here, 5 of them, doesn't mean I don't like them enough to purchase them. We've got a talking cat as well. It just means I haven't purchased them yet, because I do love quite a lot from what I smelled here, and not only from the Serge Lutens batch. So I've got my ginger cat, I've got my ginger tea, and let's begin with smelling Fils de Joie, which I wasn't expecting to love this fragrance so much. When you look at on the notes, you know, oh, it also colors the blotter, so be careful if you own Fils de Joie, or if you are, you know, thinking of getting Fils de Joie, do not spray this on white garments, because this will stain. Fils de Joie is the most realistic honey, well, with the exception of, you know, actual photorealistic honeys such as bee from Zoologist. You know, it's still fragrancy honey, it's perfumey honey, which is, it's got that flower, because it's a floral honey, it's a deeply floral honey, it's a white floral honey, it's got that, it's not tuberose, it's, God, I forgot, it's a nicotiana flower, night blooming jasmine they call it, I think, but in my country they call it a different thing. I think it's more related to tuberose, if I'm not mistaken. In any case, this is a very delicate but velvety white floral, which is so full, you know, it's so full, it's so rich, it's also wet and delicate at the same time. It's like dewy night blooming jasmine. I don't want to call it night blooming jasmine because let me be right back. It's actually Nicotiana alata, the winged, you know, Nicotiana or whatever, and they call it jasmine tobacco or sweet tobacco or winged tobacco or whatever. I'm just not familiar. We call it Queen of the Night in my language. And it's a flower that, you know, blooms. It's a night blooming flower, so I think night blooming jasmine is okay. It's an okay term. I'm just not familiar with that term. And that night blooming jasmine is just so present. It's center stage, and it's accompanied by this rich golden honey that's never overpowering, it's never overbearing, it's never too much. And this, as soon as I find this available somewhere, I will just purchase it. It's something I need to have. It's amazing. Fils de Joie. Just like the name, I think it's grave and somber, although it has joy right there in its title. It's so remarkable, and because it's you know, it's tobacco flower, I think the word balance needs to be addressed again, and we will address the word balance a lot when it comes to Serge Lutens or Christopher Sheldrake, for that matter, because well, he's the one doing the fragrances as far as we know, and his hand is just amazing. It's they're very, very balanced scents, and they're very theatrical and dramatic. And this one is, for some reason, the color of the juice is very appropriate. It's like red wine that stains the lips. It's very romantic. It's very alluring, this one. And it's also very sexy. I love Fils de Joie. Okay, I don't want to make this video terribly long, so we'll just kind of, you know, fly through them as much as we can. Now the next one, just because I miss it so much, will be De Profundis. And look at this color. And this color, surprisingly, will be very appropriate for the fragrance as well. Now, De Profundis, oh my goodness, is leafy, but De Profundis has a very interesting trajectory, you know. De Profundis changes a lot when you wear it, when you know, get to know it. It's quite quite complex a fragrance, this one, but it starts off leafy, very, very green, but it's the type of leafy scent that reminds me of a bunch of tulips. I do love the smell of tulips, be it the flower, the pollen, the leaves itself, the sap. When you cut a tulip, that sap is very fragrant. It's very green, and it's very delicate. It's quite unique, but it's also got that plasticky thing. All spring flowers from that family of tulips, you know, the Liliaceae, I don't know what it's called in English, which is tulip, narcissus, lily, let me see, hyacinth, all the sap from this family of flowers kind of smells the same, and this is what I'm smelling right here, and it's not very far off from iris. It's not far off from very, very green and delicate iris. And it is spectacular, you know. I think this is why the color of the fragrance is very appropriate. It's like so green that it becomes bitter purple. And when you bruise the stem or the leaf of a tulip, it does become purple. It becomes deep green, almost purple, and this is amazing. Now, of course, I find this fragrance to be quite akin to Chanel number 19, and going further away from Chanel number 19, I think it's very much akin to Vol de Nuit. It's got that of the night, deep, dark, green feeling, a very cold type of scent, albeit this one is devoid of the, you know, the powderiness, the airy vanilla that Vol de Nuit does have. This one is much more austere. It's solitary, you know. It's a lot more somber than Vol de Nuit, although Vol de Nuit is quite melancholy and somber. And also it reminds me of the green parts, the green, violet and narcissus parts of grey flannel. And it's the second time I've mentioned grey flannel today, but it's there, you know. It's got that green, grey flannel type of, just as in Amazon, right? That very, very bitter green cassis type of smell. But this one, De Profundis, is just so mysterious and so, oof. Yeah, I know. And I had to look on the notes, because it's something I don't remember all that well about this. As I said, this fragrance has a bit of a trajectory, right? And I don't remember its trajectory because it's been a while since I smelled it. But what it does is this fragrance has listed a chrysanthemum note. It just so happens that for me, chrysanthemum is very familiar, because in my country it marks the very first day of school. It's a flower that you can buy mostly in autumn, and it's quite prevalent in autumn, the chrysanthemum, and it marks the first day of school. And this is why for me De Profundis is quite you know, not necessarily melancholy, but I do understand its roots, where it's coming from. And chrysanthemum is bitter. It's a bitter green type of floral. It's quite similar to marigold, and it's sort of a daisy type of smell. And also it does that thing where you can almost taste the smell. It's almost synesthetic. This one becomes, as it dries, it becomes more oak mossy and more into the realm of 80s type of chypres, you know, Magie Noire. It's got that very mossy, soily, almost metallic type of, you know, 80s type of chypre, which is very green and very mossy and very earthy. But the trajectory is very, very interesting. So this is why I think De Profundis is one of the best things I've smelled in a while. I mean, sure, the references are there. Number 19 cannot be ignored, but it's, I mean, it's so much more than the reference. These are references done correctly, right? It's not, you know, it's just inspiration from a scent. No, these are references and they are done correctly. But De Profundis is very much its own thing. It's like something that emerges from the depth. A flower that's got this color about it, that's delicately peeking its head to steal the attention and then to quickly die and get back to the soil, you know, where it came from. This is a serious scent. It's, yeah. I don't know if you can tell, but I did love this quite a lot. Now let's go to Écrin de fumée, which I found out is a very recent launch. I think there's still something here. And Écrin de fumée is exactly what it smells like. What it, you know, what the title is. It's tobacco and tobacco smoke. It's very smoky, this one. And it does remind me quite a lot, in the opening at least. It reminds me of L'Homidal L'Intense, which is, you know, had to say this. And it also reminds me of, gosh, another one. It was Bulgari Man in Black, which is another tobacco with a floral heart. And a fruity top note, which, you know, could be cherry, could be something that kind of goes well with tobacco and the, you know, modern type of fragrances, you know, the modern trend where you put tobacco and cherry in the same place. Now let's look on the notes, because if I remember correctly, this one changes also. The notes for Serge Lutens fragrances are quite well established. They are well described on, you know, websites such as Fragrantica. This is described as boozy, cacao, smoked tobacco, woody. Yeah, sure. Don't get the cacao all that much. It's like somebody's been smoking in a room while drinking cognac, right? Or, you know, rum or some alcoholic beverage. But the dry down of this fragrance is very much olibanum, if I remember correctly. It's olibanum smoky incense, right? Which is beautiful. It's a beautiful scent. However, I should say this fragrance did not, you know, impress me as much as it should have. I don't know why. It doesn't create all the things in me as the others did, you know, like Ambre Sultan or Fils de Joie or De Profundis, or, you know, don't want to spoil because we've got two more to talk about. So I think Écrin de fumée is a fragrance that's meant to sell, because, you know, every house has to sell. I think it's going to be well received. I think it's already well received, not by all-time, you know, fans of the house of Serge Lutens, but, you know, rather newcomers and people who are looking for something easy and easy to like. However, it's still a very beautifully complex scent and very, very beautifully crafted, nevertheless. Now let's go to L'Orpheline, which is, you know, an interesting name for this scent. And I do remember this one. Let's see how we're going to smell this. I'm going to dip a blotter inside if it fits. I remember this one as being very, very musky. Yeah, I'm sure. Now, yes, it's a floral spicy opening, which is very interesting. However, it does have this very, very familiar thing for me. I mean, it's not a bad thing to have familiar feelings when you're smelling a scent. It's easier to ground yourself, to maybe know where you're beginning from. And to me, the feeling I get, the déjà vu feeling, is Idylle by Guerlain, which is a floral, very, very musky type of scent, but with very beautifully chosen musks. So they're very clean, very overt, soapy musks, but also with a bit of something metal, something mineral and metal underneath all that. It's beautiful. The scent is fairly linear as a musk scent can get. I mean, as time goes on, it will get increasingly more musky, right? I mean, that's basically it. It does, you know, the florals in the opening are maybe akin to magnolia. Maybe it's a rather undefined white floral with very sweetish but very delicate fruity top notes. It's, you know, nothing that screams. It's quite austere as far as musks go, and this will become increasingly muskier and increasingly more incensey. It's a sort of an incense musk. But just as Écrin de fumée, it didn't speak to me on a, you know, personal level. It's still a very beautiful scent, and a scent I would love to, I see myself wearing both Écrin de fumée and l'Orpheline, but I don't see myself purchasing them, because I think this genre of fragrance is very well covered. Yes, l'Orpheline is very well covered in my collection, and let's just leave it at that. Now, last fragrance for today. How many have there been? Okay, five fragrances. Well, that's quite a lot. Last fragrance for today is something that, again, as soon as I find it, I will purchase it because it blew my mind. And this is Chergui. Now, I apologize sort of to long-term fans of this house. I don't know any details to tell you. It's a house I barely know some things about. The only other fragrance I had until now from Serge Lutens was Joie de peau, which is a fragrance I appreciate for its playfulness and its originality, and I do love it. And I barely wear it, unfortunately, and it's a shame. But this Chergui, which I think, interestingly enough, does share some things with Joie de peau, especially in the drier stages, because, as I said, these are fragrances that change quite a lot. This Chergui, only thing I know about this is that Chergui is the name of a wind somewhere in Africa. And it's interesting because Chergui starts off very green and very incensey, just as L'Air de Désert Marocain does. Although they're not terribly similar, they do share this very airy vibe, very green, spicy, airy vibe, which I find to be sumptuous here in Chergui. I find it to be amazing. Now, where Chergui truly manages to blow my mind is the iris that's just there in the middle, and it's so silvery and faint, and it becomes ever more present, ever more, I wouldn't say necessarily powdery, but it sort of contributes to the amber so well. This is an amber, it's a honeyed amber Chergui, and the way, because you know, we will talk about Ambre Sultan as well, and I think they do share a core of similarities. But this one, Chergui, I appreciate for its greenness, for, again, its balance. It's the fact that it's named after a wind is so appropriate. This fragrance I will have to purchase as soon as I find it. Chergui doesn't have, that trajectory isn't all that different from what you're smelling in the wet stages, and this is a good thing. I mean, not all changes to a fragrance are, you know, well regarded. It's quite refreshing to see a very balanced and well done, quite linear scent. But I should say this becomes woodier and muskier and creamier, and the iris, as I said, kind of takes center stage, and well, not completely center stage, but it does grow inside this fragrance very beautifully, but it still remains green and fresh and very well done. And it's also quite camphorous, almost minty like. Such a beautiful scent. Now, this concludes the Serge Lutens part of this box of samples, for which I am eternally grateful. If you've got any other questions regarding the scents we've spoken about today, do let me know in the comments. And until next time, remember, fragrance creates memories, and may yours be happy.